Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the world's longest constitution to meet the people who actually designed it. I mean, who were these master builders? Let's find out together.
I mean, just think about that for a second. That was the unbelievable question facing India's leaders right after independence. And this wasn't just about, writing a few laws. This was about creating the entire framework for a brand new nation, a nation that was impossibly diverse. We're talking countless languages, religions, and cultures. It was a truly colossal task. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll meet the core team. Then, we're going to zoom in on the specific jobs of four absolute giants. Nehru, who shaped the vision for the central government. Patel, who focused on uniting all the provinces. Prasad, the steady hand who guided the whole process. And of course, the man who put it all down on paper, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
Okay, so to even begin to understand how this massive document was possible, we have to look at the people who were in charge of the most crucial committees. And look, these weren't just politicians. They were literally the lead architects of modern India.
We're going to focus on these four pillars. Each one had a completely distinct and absolutely essential role. You can almost think of them as heads of different architectural departments. You've got the structural engineer, the foundation expert, the project manager, all collaborating on one grand, breathtaking design.
So let's start at the very top with the big picture vision. That enormous task fell to India's first prime minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. He had to define the very idea of the Indian Union itself. Nehru's main job, his primary focus, was creating a strong, centralized national government, one that would be powerful enough to hold this sprawling, brand new country together. So his work really laid the foundation for the Union's power. And you can see his focus so clearly in the committees he personally led: the Union Power Committee, the Union Constitution Committee, and the States Committee. You see the pattern, right? All three were laser-focused on one thing: defining the power and scope of the central government. So this is how Nehru's committees built the very backbone of the nation. They had to answer that fundamental question: what can the central government actually do? And just as importantly, they created the roadmap for bringing dozens of semi-independent princely states into the fold. But a strong center is only half the story. The next architect, Sardar Patel, he took on the equally massive job of weaving the hundreds of diverse provinces into this new national fabric. So if Nehru was focused on the center, the top-down approach, Patel's job was to build the whole structure from the ground up. He was the one designing the rules for the provinces and, maybe most critically, embedding citizens' rights right into the core of the new constitution. And the scope of his work was just immense. I mean, sure, he led the Provincial Constitution Committee, but he also led the incredibly complex Advisory Committee. This one committee covered fundamental rights, minorities, and tribal and excluded areas. Just pause and think about that responsibility for a second. It's huge. This is where it gets personal. The rights that protect every single Indian citizen today, they were born right here, in this committee's work. Patel's efforts made sure that while the Union was strong, the states had their own structure, and every single person, no matter their background, was guaranteed fundamental protections. And this right here is the genius of their whole approach. You've got Nehru building this powerful central government from the top down. At the exact same time, you have Patel building up the rights of provinces and individuals from the bottom up. It's this incredible push and pull, this perfect, delicate balance that really defines the Indian federal structure to this day. Okay, but with all these powerful committees debating, arguing, and deciding, who is making sure the whole process didn't just fly off the rails and descend into chaos? Well, that brings us to our third figure, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. See, as the president of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Prasad's role wasn't really about defining power or rights. It was about managing the process. He was the procedural anchor, the person who made sure this complex, messy, 3-year-long debate followed a clear and democratic path. He was in charge of the Rules of Procedure Committee and the Steering Committee. What does that mean? Well, he basically wrote the operating manual for how the Constitution would even be written. He wasn't choosing the destination, but he was the impartial captain, steering the entire ship and making damn sure it reached the port safely. Honestly, without this work, the whole project could have just collapsed into noise. Prasad's leadership was like a symphony conductor. He made sure every instrument, every voice in the room could be heard, and that every decision was made in harmony. He basically created the conditions for a masterpiece to be composed. So, we've got the vision for the union, we have the framework for the provinces, and we have the rules for the process. Now, who was the one person tasked with putting it all into one single, coherent legal document? For that, we turn to the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So, what did the drafting committee actually do? Well, its job was to take all the principles, all the reports, all the resolutions from every other committee, and then forge them into precise, legally binding articles. This was the final, and you could argue the most meticulous and grueling, stage of the entire process. And Dr. Ambedkar was the head of this monumental task. He is absolutely and rightly called the chief architect of the Constitution. Why? Because he and his committee were responsible for the final wording, the structure, the legal coherence of the entire document. They were the ones who turned years of heated debate into the finished product. So, when you look at the whole picture, it's so clear this wasn't the work of one person, not even close. It was a symphony of collaboration. You had Nehru's grand vision for the Union, Patel's intricate framework for the provinces, Prasad's procedural guidance, keeping everything on track, all of it culminating in Ambedkar's final, masterful draft. And the incredible outcome of all these different efforts, all these powerful minds working together, was this: one single unified rulebook for a vast and impossibly diverse nation. It's just a stunning testament to their shared purpose. And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. The work these architects did, it wasn't just for their time. It was a blueprint for the future. And understanding their very different roles helps us appreciate the incredible, delicate balance they created, a balance that India continues to navigate today. So the question remains, how will this blueprint from the past continue to shape the India of tomorrow?